Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Essential Album video. We're now on week 40, and this week we're taking a look at Back in Black by AC/DC, first released July 25th, 1980. Some notable tracks on this album include Hell's Bells, You Shook Me All Night Long, Back in Black, and Shoot to Thrill. And this is just a classic hard rock metal album, one of AC/DC's best albums in my opinion. Um, just very solid from start to finish. Always a pleasure to listen to this album. Listened to it again somewhat recently, and was kind of surprised that I hadn't done this album yet for the series or the uh, two series ago, the 2023 series, which was the first initial albums series I did. Obviously, didn't do it in 2024 because that was all albums I was just listening to for like the first time. But yeah, I went back and searched through and hadn't covered this album, which is kind of surprising. So we're getting it covered here. I have some notes here about it. We're going to get through those notes and then we will get to our track list and all that. So we just grab the notebook here and we just open it up. There we go. All right, so again, Back in Black by AC/DC, again, released July 25th, 1980. This is the first AC/DC album without vocalist Bon Scott, who had passed away roughly like 5 months before this album came out. I think he just went out drinking one night. Didn't remember how much he actually drank, but basically, like from what I remember seeing, I think it was like Behind the Music or something like that. Just passed out in a car in front of like his friend's house and choked on his own vomit essentially. So went out, drank probably obviously way too much, and then passed out in his car. And based on the positioning and how he was probably sitting in the car, ended up choking. I remember that was in. I want to say I saw that like it was called Behind the Music, like in like 2006, and I definitely remember. I think it was Malcolm Young talking about it, Angus Young as well, talking about the night that he had passed away. And like a week before or something like that, they had the Young brothers had gotten a bunch of music together, and they were basically just they wanted Bon Scott to come by the studio to check out what they were working on, and maybe get some lyrics out, stuff like that. So unfortunately, Bon Scott never got to write any of the lyrics for this. So they had a whole audition to get a new singer. This is the first album with Brian Johnson on vocals, who went through the audition process and got hired on, and I think has basically been with AC/DC essentially ever since. He's a great vocalist as well, and kind of like I think like definitely like filled that void like pretty well overall. Like Bon Scott's kind of one of a kind, but Brian Johnson is also, I think, just as equally responsible for the success of AC/DC as Bon Scott was. So we have here. So yeah, again, if this is the first album with Brian Johnson, I remember also seeing the this was covered in the Behind the Music documentary as well, where he was brought in and I think was told in a very cryptic message that he'd be auditioning for a band, but the person, I think it was just like I think from what Brian Johnson was saying, it was a German woman who couldn't reveal the identity of the band that he was auditioning for, but was able to give the band's initials, which obviously the band is basically only known by initials. So I think like from what I remember Brian Johnson saying, he was like, oh yeah, it's for this band, it's like AC plus DC, and Brian Johnson's like, oh, AC/DC, and then the lady on the phone like swearing in German or cussing in German because she kind of gave away the identity of the band. And if you're just going up based off the initials, it's kind of hard not to give the identity of the band away. So kind of wasn't a very well kept secret, I suppose. But yeah, he got brought in, and then they recorded the music with him. I think they went through, and I think he was one of the first people that they actually auditioned. And I think the band then, of course, like listened to everybody else. And I think it was actually Malcolm Young that called Brian Johnson to let him know that he had gotten the job as the new vocalist for the band. One of the best-selling albums of all time. I still think it holds that record because when I checked it during the research, it's the number two best-selling sorry, the number 2 best-selling album of all time. That's right behind Thriller. So that's a pretty good show of like just like the commercial success of this album. And it's basically just a modern rock, maybe not modern anymore because it's probably considered classic rock now, but just a rock masterpiece from start to finish. We got the thing about the behind the music. So they recorded the album in the Bahamas, and apparently there was like a lot of issues with like there were some issues getting their equipment there. Their equipment got kind of held up in customs. There was also apparently a bunch of like bad tropical storms that had kind of sidelined some of the recording. And apparently those tropical storms are kind of the inspiration, according to my research anyway, for some of the lyrics on Hell's Bells, where it's like pouring like lightning, thunder, and rain coming at you like a hurricane. Apparently, like that, those storms inspired some of those lyrics. I have a couple quotes here to bring up. One is Brian Johnson describing the recording process of this song, and kind of like not really knowing like how well he fit with the band, at least initially. And it was the quote is this is a Brian Johnson quote. So it's quote. It was like again, Brian, again, and this is him recounting the producer telling him how to like do the recording and all that. Says it was like quote, well within the quote, again, Brian, again. Hold on, you sang that note too long, so there's no room for a breath. He wouldn't let anything get past him. He had to sing where he didn't want people to listen to the album down the road and say there's no way someone would sing that. They've dropped that in. Even the breaths had to be in the right place, and you cannot knock a man for that. But he drove me nuts. I'd be sitting there going "arg" or whatever. So that's a quote from Brian Johnson. There is another quote here from Dave Grohl just about the drumming on the album. And kind of like if you want to learn rock drumming, this is basically an album that is a must listen to if you want to learn just solid rock drumming. And Dave Grohl's quote is, quote, now if you want to be a drummer, you're going to want to get start over. So, quote, now if you want to be a drummer, you're going to want to get the AC/DC album Back in Black. That is rock and roll drumming 101. And I think he mentioned that in his book when one of his daughters was wanting to learn drumming. And I think the first song he put on for her to learn, and this is according to his the storyteller, his kind of autobiography, the first song he put on for her was Back in Black by AC/DC because it just uses the money beat, which is a very simple drum beat. Like I'm not great at drumming. I did drum some on that little digital pad behind me there sometimes. And the money beat is pretty straightforward, but it's like a very effective beat. It's been used like hundreds, if not thousands of times in various songs, like throughout like the history of music, basically, or at least drumming. So it's a very solid beat, very effective, and it's used to great effect in Back in Black. So we got the thing there. We're gonna move into our reviews now for the album. We actually just pulled out to where those reviews are. So basically, just positive, glowing reviews, kind of across the board for this album. All Music has the album at 5 out of 5. Blender also coming in with a 5 out of 5. Chris Styles' Record Guide gives it a B minus. The Encyclopedia of Popular Music has it at a 4 out of 5. The Great Rock Discography has it at an 8 out of 10. Music Hound Rock, another 5 out of 5 there. Pitchfork with an 8.8. Rolling Stone with a 5 out of 5. Same thing for the Rolling Stone Album Guide, a 5 out of 5 from them as well. And then the Spin Alternative Record Guide has it at an 8 out of 10. We're now going to move into our track list, and I think this one comes in at that kind of sweet spot. Yeah, so 42 minutes and 11 seconds. And I said before, like, between 35 and 45 minutes is like a great runtime or length of an album for me. So, yeah, it comes in about, 42 minutes, 11 seconds with 10 tracks, all kind of just rock classics. And it opens up very strongly with track 1, which is Hell's Bells. That's just an incredible track. Track 2 is Shoot to Thrill. That's also an amazing song. I remember they used that. I think it was Iron Man 2 when he enters when he's like skydiving into the the Stark Expo. Used very effectively there, but just an incredible song on its own. Track 3 is What Do You Do for Money, Honey? It's a classic there. Track 4 is Giving the Dog a Bone. And then track 5, closing out the first side of the vinyl, is Let Me Put My Love Into You. Into side 2, we have a couple more classics on this side as well. A lot of times with albums, you get all the big hits on side 1, and side 2 doesn't have that many. Side 2 still has some very solid hits on it. Title track, track 6, Back in Black is on that. That's just a very iconic AC/DC song, one of their best. After that, we move into another classic from them, which is You Shook Me All Night Long. For a while, at like the high school dances I used to go to back, like decades ago, that was always a staple of those high school dances was You Shook Me All Night Long. So that was track 7. Into track 8, we have Have a Drink on Me. Track 9 is Shake a Leg. And then closing it out at track 10 is Rock and Roll and Noise Pollution. So yeah, just again, solid across the board. 10 tracks, 42 minutes and 11 seconds. And it's just like an incredible album, like overall. Sold financial, or commercially incredibly well. Like second best-selling album of all time, right behind Thriller. And a great kind of album to introduce Brian Johnson, their new singer to. Like definitely dark times for the band with Bon Scott passing away, but they kind of came through it and put out an absolute classic. Apparently, again, according to the I think it was Behind the Music, they were saying that the album was basically done as a way to kind of mourn and pay respect to Bon Scott, who passed away, like I said, like just 5 or so months before the album came out. He hadn't recorded any vocals for it, but a lot of the instruments and music was kind of arranged by the Young brothers prior to that. But of course, unfortunately, Bon Scott never got the opportunity to work on any of that. And Bon Scott's an amazing vocalist as well for the band. Like a lot of the entire early catalog and some of their like Highway to Hell is a Bon Scott song, and that's one of their most iconic songs as well. But I feel like as an AC/DC fan, you can like both singers. Each one has various tracks like associated with them. Bon Scott has, like Highway to Hell. It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll, and so on. And then Brian Johnson has his own share of their classics like Shoot to Thrill, Back in Black, of course, Hell's Bells, and so on. So, but yeah, that is going to do it for this album. And this is just a classic. I'm kind of surprised I hadn't covered this one prior to this. I think I was maybe considered doing it for the first series and just never got around to doing it. I don't really know. But we got it on the books now, so we're good to go there. But yeah, that is going to do it for this video. So remember to like, comment, share, subscribe. I'll be back again in a week with a whole new essential album. No idea what that's going to be, but we'll be back in a week with that. So yeah, that'll do for now. So thanks again for watching. Take care and have a good one.